Janet Wilson, eh? One word, why? That's the only question I've got. Why did you do that interview, Janet? This is not a good strategy. If you missed Barry earlier, what's happened is Janet Wilson was Judith Collins' press secretary during the last election campaign. And she was asked by the Spin-Off News website for an interview and she declined. And then Collins, of course, launched that attack at Susie Wiles last week. And so out of the blue, Janet just texts the Spin-Off on Saturday and is like, yeah, okay, let's do the interview. So she did. And she slates Collins. Here's a little taster.
She prizes loyalty above all else, but then her ugly stepsister paranoia steps in and she has these almost paranoid storms.
There's a lot of that, and then there's also just a general discussion about how bad things are for the National Party.
I think we're at a junction now where we're at a moment now where the harm that's been inflicted is pretty high.
Yeah, well, look, none of this is particularly enlightening. I mean, I didn't learn anything from this interview that I didn't already know. I already knew, and I would imagine that if you watch politics, you don't even have to watch it closely. So I imagine that you would as well have known Collins is erratic in her strategy and either doesn't take advice, or if she does take advice, it's clearly bad advice. So there's very little value in what is said in the interview. The interview's real worth is that it's just incredibly shocking how badly this party is disintegrating. It's a little bit rich of Janet Wilson to accuse the Nats of a lack of discipline, which she does when she gives interviews like this, when she accuses them of tarnishing their own brand, but then she does this, which tarnishes the brand. Look, I can only hazard a guess at why Janet did this, and my guess is that she decided that she needed to distance herself from Judith Collins publicly for her own reputation, that she needed to put it out there that none of Collins's bad calls were as a result of her advice. But this strategy is not reputation enhancing. This is a really bad call. It never looks good when a former staffer turns on the boss. I mean, look over at the UK. Look at Dominic Cummings turning on Boris Johnson in a series of repeated public attacks. Who came out of that worse? Cummings did, not Boris Johnson. In this case, I mean, Collins is already bad enough. You know, people. I don't know that she could come out of this good. But the real victim here is the National Party, because the more people associated with that party turn on each other in public like this, the less trust that the average voter has in that party.
It's all about the 80s. The 80s, the best music era ever. Coast 80s. Listen and follow now on iHeartRadio.